again, as I said, the task before us tonight is to review this budget and ratify it so that it may in fact be published by December 1st as required in our governing documents. And I know most of those of us who were on the board last time are aware of this, but for the benefit of the new folks on the board, you may or may not be aware of the fact that our income this year is significantly below our budgeted income. And the primary reason, of course, for that being the slowdown in the real estate market. We had anticipated a lot more money from capitalization fees that we didn't realize. We had hoped for the sale of a number of our own lots that has not materialized. We haven't sold any lots to date. Recognizing this fact and fully expecting that the real estate market is not going to turn around for at least through the early part of next year, if not, it depends on who you want to listen to, maybe the whole year, maybe even longer than a year. We've taken in the 2008 budget a much more conservative approach. We have projected no sales of, they call it owned lots, and we projected our capitalization fee income based upon the actuals that we have seen through the first 10 months of this year. So it's a considerably more conservative approach on the income side of the ledger than the budget that we prepared for 07. The 08 budget reflects the annual assessments increasing by the maximum amount, the annual assessment portion of the assessment, if you will, increasing by the maximum amount allowed in our governing documents. That is 15% increase. The 08 budget, as did the 07 budget, also includes a special assessment. Last year's special assessment was for roads, the road program. This year's special assessment, and I'll say more about this for the benefit of the new members of the board here just in just a little bit. But this year's special assessment is for work on the relocation of our maintenance facility. And the good news is that the special assessment for 08 is approximately 30% less than the special assessment that we had in the budget for this year. So as a result, the bottom line, the assessments that our homeowners will be paying in the coming year increases only by 7.7% for single-family homes, 7.1% for water and sewer homes, and the membership lot total overall assessment actually decreases by 1.4%. And you'll see that summarized on this handout right here. That's part of the budget package that you should have all received. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the expense side of the 2008 budget. Big ticket items, as is the case in every year, are personnel costs for the general manager, for his staff, for the maintenance staff, for the patrol staffs, and the administrative expenses, the mailing and the papers and the office supplies and what have you that go along with that, represent a significant portion of our overall expenses. The gate contract is a large expense. This year, and reserve contributions, both our replacement reserve, which is about $198,000, and in this case here, there is another reserve fund item that I'd like to talk to. And if you'll go to page 2 and look at line number 83, you'll see a reserve contribution for $113,000 for dam spillway reserve. Now, for the new folks on the board and for the benefit of our homeowners, let me talk a little bit as to what that is. Earlier this year, when we saw that our income was lagging below budget, we found ourselves in a cash flow crunch. Rather than go to the bank and borrow money at their rate, we said, let's borrow money from ourselves. So what we did in order to work the '07 cash flow crunch that we found ourselves in was to borrow some $213,000 from the dam replacement reserve fund, the dam reserve fund. When we sold the utility company to Aqua at the beginning of this year, we realized some income, and we earmarked some $213,000 of that income to go into the dam reserve fund. Well, that's the fund that we borrowed from this year, the $213,000, to work our cash flow issue. We plan on repaying some $100,000 of that before the end of this year, and the remaining $113,000 is the line that shows up on page 2, line 83. $113,000 will complete the payback to ourselves of the money that we borrowed from the dam reserve fund. There is also a line item in the budget, namely on page 5, line item number 151, for some $88,000. This is the principal and interest that we will be paying back on the loan for the clubhouse. We borrowed some, as it turns out, about $640,000 to rework the clubhouse, and we'll be paying that amount back starting with next year's budget. Now, I want to talk to take a brief excursion here, because I know there has been some criticism of both myself as an individual and of last year's board for entering into this arrangement that we did with Wachovia for the clubhouse loan. The clubhouse loan is has a balloon feature. The loan is due in 5 years. It's a loan that is amortized at about a 6.9% over a 15-year period. The criticism has been, how could you commit the association to a balloon loan that's going to come due in 5 years, and my Lord, what's going to happen? Quite frankly, I talked to a number of lending institutions here locally last year before we entered into that loan. That was the very best terms that were available to us. We have a commitment from Wachovia that they will refinance the loan when it comes due in 5 years. So I don't view this with the concern that we see every day in the newspaper and on TV, where people have entered into these subprime loans and they're being called in, or they just can't afford. They've got themselves in a box where they can't afford to live in their house, and they've got to be foreclosed and what have you. That's not going to happen to us. We will pay down a significant portion of the loan by the time it comes due in 5 years. Wachovia will refinance it for us at that time, if not before, if there are more favorable terms. So I don't see this as being a detriment at all. As a matter of fact, it was the best game we could come up with in town, and I talked to a number of folks in town before we entered into that agreement. So if anybody asks you, that's the story about that particular loan.